Do you need a bachelor's in education to start your own microschool? Miss Iman back from Kine Academy talking about microschools as usual. And I love this question because it really gets us thinking about what it takes to run a microschool. So you generally don't need any type of degree to start a microschool, especially depending on where you are and what type of microschool you decide. So if you check through my videos, I always talk about all the different types of microschools that I've seen. A lot of times you see people who are just parents who decided that they want something different for their child, and then they decide that they want to have other kids kind of involved in that type of learning experience. And sometimes they don't have any degree at all. Like homeschool parents, I think, are amazing rock stars. If you've never heard me say that, check out my videos because I talk about how I started off as a homeschooling parent and it started me on a journey of opening a microschool. I did have a degree. I actually do have a master's in school counseling, but I've seen people with doctorates who open microschools and they don't go very far. And then I've seen parents who don't have any degree open a microschool and they do amazing. I don't think that a degree really determines whether or not you can open a successful microschool or a successful business in general. I would, as usual, give some suggestions though. I generally suggest like taking some entrepreneurship courses. Education courses are good. Sometimes I run into education courses that do not have or that have a very traditional mindset of the way education should be done. I think now we're running into a situation where a lot of coursework is now being updated to reflect more student-centered learning, more personalized learning, kind of catching up with what is happening in the microschool world. And I think if you can find courses like that, then it would be beneficial for you to at least have the knowledge under your belt. But a lot of this is experience, and a lot of this is really about the way that you view humans and the way that you view students in your classroom. So needing a degree is not generally like my first, if I'm like thinking about supporting somebody in their microschool, launching a microschool, which is what I do, having a degree is not the first thing that I think about. The first thing I really look at is experience. How long have you been around kids? How do you treat kids? How do you feel about kids? Those kind of things. And then also, have you run a business before? Do you realize like the things that are going to be needed to open this business? Do you understand the type of work that it takes, especially in the beginning, the startup of that? And are you comfortable with that? Have you ever failed before? Because running a business, especially in the beginning, you're going to have a lot of situations where you don't know what you're doing. And if you're comfortable with not knowing what you're doing, starting a microschool is a great idea, because when you don't know what you're doing, you end up basically going to try to learn how to do it. And you're okay with kind of making some mistakes, hopefully not huge mistakes. And hopefully you get coaching is usually a big thing that I talk about too. Like having a coach, having somebody who coached me in business in general was really a lifesaver when I started our microschool. Budgeting is a really big thing, but just having a bachelor's in education, absolutely not. I do not think that's a requirement. I honestly am kind of like, I don't want to say I'm not anti-college, but I am definitely of the mindset that nowadays people can kind of learn a lot of what they need to learn from a lot of different places. Mind you, I do have a degree, so I'm not saying that having a degree is a bad idea or anything like that. But I do know that getting a lot of this information sometimes doesn't have to take you 4 years to do it. So I don't think that should be a deterrent. So that's kind of my answer on that. You do not need a bachelor's of education, depending on what you decide to go into, meaning like if you decide to open a preschool, you generally don't need a bachelor's, but you may need like I forgot what it's called. I think it's a CDA to start a preschool, right? If you start a preschool microschool, if you decide to start a tutoring center, a lot of times you don't need any degree to do that. Some people open and buy tutoring centers that are from out of country and they're doing it based off of a visa and they don't have any degree at all. They do usually when you open a business, it's in determining, depending on where you're at, sometimes they want to see that you have experience in the field before you like buy a space. But a lot of times you can just hire a teacher to do it. So needing a bachelor's in education is not a requirement. If you're opening a private school, even that they don't ask for a bachelor's in education. Mind you, I am in the state of Florida, so a lot of times I am talking about the state of Florida, but even thinking about like all over the country that I have seen, the only thing that I have seen is that some states do ask for what they call an accreditation. And sometimes with an accreditation, they want to have a certain amount of teachers on staff that are certified. Being a certified teacher in the state of Florida, you generally do need a bachelor's, but you don't need a bachelor's necessarily in education. Sometimes it could be in, for example, if you're going to be teaching entrepreneurship, if you have a bachelor's in entrepreneurship, then you can use that and become a certified teacher. Again, talking about the state of Florida, but different states have different requirements. I always suggest like looking up the law plus the name of your state plus microschools or private schools or preschools or tutoring centers to kind of get more of an idea of exactly what you need in your area. I generally am a little bit, it's always a little bit more work when I get a teacher like straight out of the classroom in opening their mind to what a microschool can be like, unless they already come to me like, I know that traditional education is a problem right now. But for teachers who come to me and they're like certified and they're super traditional, a lot of times I have to do a lot of deschooling with them, which means that I have to kind of like remind them that the best education, or now the way that education is being done and the way that we're seeing scientific studies kind of support the way education is being done, and the future of education is much more personalized, much more student-centered, much more, I like to say, guide on the side instead of stage on the stage. Like, we're not the keepers of knowledge. We're in an information age right now, so we can find any knowledge, and I try to connect my students to all this knowledge. So that's kind of our job. Needing a bachelor's in education is not generally a requirement for that. Hopefully that answered your question. It wasn't too long. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.